people do religion in different ways, or should I say peoples do religion in different ways. There are earth-centered faiths and faiths that try to shake off the season's hold on us. There are faiths that point us towards a final end time, and faiths that remind us that everything is cyclical. Some faiths are open to all, and others are reserved for a few. But all faiths happen, all religions happen in a context of history and culture. We inherit and we innovate. We are always older than the stars, and we are always newer than tomorrow. And still, for all that variety of form, there are two things that beg to be heard. First, there are big truths that come up again and again and again. They cross time and they cross culture. They are not as tightly bound to history, for all that they are nuanced by the language and culture of their creation. They are untethered to the calendar and skip lightly through the holy texts, leaving their imprint across human divisions. That was really convoluted. There are some things that come up over and over again, and we probably should pay attention to them. Because if every religion has some version of be good to your neighbor, maybe being good to your neighbor is something that matters. That was the not fancy way, just saying. Second thing I want to say about religion is that nothing I say in the abstract matters, all right? So I can tell you that religion plays out on the scope of human history as X, Y, or Z, or there was this epoch in history where all religions changed and it was called the Axial Age, and we went from being more concerned with like cosmic maintenance to personal ethics. And you can hear all that, and all that is good data that you can put into your head. And do you know what it matters for your life? Not much. Because religion might come up as a response to culture and history, but it only really matters in how it is embodied and lived and moves through the human being. So ultimately, at the end of the day, how you respond to faith in your life, how you create community and do the work of the Spirit, is up to the person that is you, the community that you are moving with, and the ways that you do that. So when I had planned this sermon, I had thought to speak of the ways that Jesus and Buddha were similar and how they were different. I had thought to give a great weight to the history, and I will say some of that. But the more important thing is how these things move in us and through us. Edie was scheduled to be the worship associate today, and she says to me, you know, you're talking about Buddhism and Christianity, but really Buddhism had a very big impact on my life. And that's, at the end of the day, what matters. So I'm going to stop talking and let Edie, details.
She said that she would print it all together, and then she has it all over there. So anyhow, I have a Buddha, and he's sitting on the table there. I've had it for many years. And I brought it today to share. So greetings, everyone in the sanctuary here and out there on YouTube. My task this morning is to make Buddhist thought real, as it became real to me. This is the story of how the Four Noble Truths helped me. Okay, that was just an exhalation. Oh, wow. Okay, more than 5 years ago, my world fell apart. For many years, I have struggled with neck pain, but I had a chiropractor who could alleviate it. I have been in at least 10 car accidents in my life. Some were my fault when I was younger, but many of them were due to my being in the wrong place at the wrong time. My neck was accumulating damage. In 2007, I was hit from behind by a crazy lady who got out of her car and screamed at me for being in her way when I was stopped at a light. In 2012, but I kept going because I'm steadfast or stubborn or whatever. In 2012, my stepson Caleb was run over and nearly killed by a drunk driver after his first week at college. Caring for him caused an intense 2-week bout of neck pain, which I now know is called radiculopathy or pinched nerve. I just think radiculopathy is another way of saying ridiculous pain. The chiropractor didn't help. Then a few months later, health insurance took back the money they had paid out, and we were billed $200,000. A 5-month fight and another 2-week bout of radiculopathy, and the insurance finally paid enough that we stopped receiving bills from healthcare providers. Our healthcare system sucks, by the way. Again, chiropractic care did not help because, as I now know, I was dealing with nerve damage. I did not seek medical attention for either of these events because a general practitioner in 2010 gave me the impression that there was nothing to be done about my degenerative neck disease. I truly wish he had sent me to an orthopedic surgeon for an evaluation, but he didn't. Then, 2 years later, my son, Daniel, failed to launch when he went off to college. When the pain became constant, I was falling, and I couldn't even walk across my backyard, much less downhill. I finally did see an orthopedic surgeon. Actually, I saw 2 of them. They left me with a frightening decision of choosing which surgical treatment to follow because, of course, they had different ideas. I was told that if I didn't have surgery, major surgery with risks, which totally petrified me, I would end up in a wheelchair. As you see, there is no wheelchair here. In 2016, I had 2 cervical surgeries, the first anterior to stabilize my neck by installing a metal plate. 2 days later, a posterior surgery was performed to correct my cervical spine from a 24-degree kyphosis, the C facing forward, to neutrality by installing rods and screws. As an aside, a normal cervical spine has a lordosis, the C faces backwards, of 25 to 30 degrees. And it is that lordosis that is protective against whiplash. I didn't have that. Doing the math, 24, 25 to 30, the curvature of my neck was off by 60 degrees. Next, my mother died while I was still in the hospital, and a few weeks later, my then husband started the process of leaving me. In 2017, I suffered a TIA, transient ischemic attack. I lost vision in this eye for a few minutes, but then I got it back. After that, the physicians performed several diagnostic procedures to figure out what was going on. It was discovered that during the 2007 car accident, my carotid arteries had dissected. This means the inner lining of the artery separated from the outer part. The left artery healed without narrowing, which was very fortunate because my TIA was a blood clot traveled up and sat on my optic nerve for the 5 minutes, and it would have been really bad if it had been the other carotid artery. The left artery healed without narrowing, but the right carotid had a 90% blockage as it entered my brain. This meant that for 10 years, because I'm steadfast or stubborn or whatnot, my right hemisphere had not received normal blood pressure. I was at significant risk of an ischemic stroke, having already suffered multiple events, unbeknownst to me, but visible as dark spots on an MRI. But if the surgeons put in a stent to fix it, I would be at risk of a hemorrhagic stroke for a week or more after the procedure, because the arteries and capillaries in my brain might not withstand normal blood pressure. The team of physicians, and I had a whole team that I knew, there was an email chain about me with several physicians over at UC. The team of physicians decided to wait and see, as they couldn't justify taking the risk of a hemorrhagic stroke unless I developed more symptoms. In other words, if I developed a bad ischemic stroke. My mental outlook was bad. By the way, there were a few more crises going on at that time, but that's enough background. So, the first noble truth is, slide, all life is suffering. Yup, I got that covered. My life was in shambles. I was broken. The second noble truth is the truth of the cause of suffering. The source of suffering is desire. Yup, I got that too. I was full of desires. I wanted to be healthy. I wanted my sons, each of them, to be healthy. I wanted my mother to live until I was back on my feet. Even though I knew she was in the process of dying, I actually said that inside myself as I went into the hospital, okay, Mom, I know you're on the downhill path, but just stay alive until I'm back on my feet. She didn't listen. I wanted my husband to be fully there with me as I went through all of this. Of all the diagnoses I received, abnormal gait, spelled G-A-I-T, was the most crushing as it was a visible sign of my disability. I wanted to walk normally so that my son couldn't identify me from half a block away, as he did one night as he was delivering pizza, and he stopped and goes, Mom, what are you doing over here? I can, recognize your walk. And you've all seen me sometimes walk funny. I wanted a cessation of pain, both physical and emotional. I hated the word neurology. I wanted all crises to cease. So I had the second, the truth of the cause of suffering was desire. The third truth is the truth of cessation of suffering. Suffering can end when desire ends. I had to see things as they really are or were and accept the reality of my situation. That I had to give up the idea that my body was capable of healing from anything that happened. That my son's recoveries will be whatever they are. That I couldn't grieve my mother until she'd been dead a year and my health stabilized. That I walk funny. But it doesn't bother me now if you see me walking funny. I'll walk across this dais, and if I weeble wobble, it is what it is. That I walk funny, but I'm still standing. That due to vertigo, I'm the cheapest drunk around. That my husband was definitely leaving. That I'm once again divorced, and it's been 3 years since that was finalized. That I've had watershed strokes in my brain. A watershed stroke is deep inside the brain where there's 3 major arteries that deliver blood to the brain, and the very inner part receives the end of all of it, so that's where the oxygen level is lowest. And so I've had watershed strokes. That there is permanent damage from spinal cord compression. The fourth noble truth is the truth of the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is a plan of action for realizing nirvana. Right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. The Eightfold Path is also called the middle way. It's a moderate path that avoids extremes. So you don't have to, you don't want to do either one extreme. It's not all or nothing. It's find a middle way of living. The Buddha uses the word right in the way we would say something is proper, appropriate, or correct. He meant for us to act properly, to concentrate correctly, to be mindful, and to put the appropriate amount of effort into everything we do. He meant for us to understand properly, to speak appropriately, to think the correct thoughts, and to have jobs that are proper, work that is respectful. I carried these 4 noble truths on or about my person for several years. To address my depression, I started a joke fest. I send out a joke or quote every morning to a whole bunch of friends and family. And as of this month, July, I've been doing it for 4 years. It worked. I'm no longer depressed, no longer taking an antidepressant. I consider humor to be right speech, and the sending of a daily text to be right action in dealing with the difficulties of life. I'm keeping on, and standing, by the way, even if I weeble wobble occasionally. Thank you.
Thank you, Edie. I'll stay over here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Since you only
I really appreciate you sharing that story with us. None of us have been exactly where you are, but we've all been in those places where everything has fallen apart, and we're just like, everything has fallen apart, and what do you do? Where do you go? How do you navigate that? One of the things that strikes me is that you were raised in a Christian church. And I like to think, Edie sings with our choir, and she does a beautiful job of song leading. And I like to think that that comes from your growing up in the Christian church. And I will ask in just a minute about what it was like to move beyond Christianity and make that faith perspective a little larger. But right now, I want to tell you a little bit more about Jesus and Buddha, as promised. They were both reformers of a sort. Jesus was born into Judaism and was learned in that faith. But he kept pushing the central message of love your neighbor as yourself. He kept pushing and pushing and pushing until it broke. And after his death, a new church was created. I'm sure that's heresy to say that somewhere, but there you go. The Jewish community that Jesus was born into was fully expecting a Messiah. They were expecting a king of kings, a wealthy, well-appointed savior. They got a kid born in a barn. Buddha was born to all the wealth and all the privilege. And had he made different choices, he could have been a king, a ruler, a creature of great comfort. But looking at the suffering of the world touched his heart so much that he could no longer stay as he was. And he walked away from that for the cause of humanity, for the cause of ending suffering for all creation. But just as interesting as their personal biographies, they represent a change in the way we do things. What they each offered was a more individualistic approach to religion. Once upon a time, your religion was determined by the people you were with, by your family, your community, your tribe, and that was it. When we were like hunter-gatherers on the plain, when we were doing our best to stay alive, nobody said, I'm going to find my own way. I mean, if they did, they were probably eaten by a saber-toothed tiger or something very quickly. It was much more communal. And at this time, with Jesus and Buddha, things start becoming more individualistic. You heard that in the songs this morning. Be ye lamps unto yourself. Learn self-reliance. That comes from Buddha. That comes from Buddhism. You have this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. The indictment from Christianity, the challenge, if you have brilliance within you, don't sit back and let it go dim. Let it shine forth and bless the world as an individual to the world. Once upon a time, a long time ago, I taught a class in world religions, and one of the things we did was we went to different houses of worship, kind of like Daniel did here. And that's something I'm open to doing. Just a quick poll. Wave at me if you'd like to go visit. We got, yes, at least a handful of people who would like to go visit other places of worship. I think that would be great. I think that'd be a lot of fun. But you have to do it with intentionality because we are not the same. And when we put our toe into Buddhism, we are putting our toe into the Buddhism that comes at us through the bookstore in Cincinnati today, right? And it's not actually, that's not actually the way all Buddhism is done all the time. When I taught Buddhism, or when I taught world religions, we would go to the Hindu temple, and my students were always astonished to find that Buddha was welcome there and represented there. That, of course, Buddha was one more opportunity to engage with that which is larger than you. Buddha's one more opportunity to reduce suffering in life. And when I think of that, I think of our ancestral response to the Christian message. We, as Unitarian Universalists, said that this Christianity is for everyone. That if there's a circle that contains the faith, we're going to open that circle up. We're going to erase bits and pieces so that people can come and go, so that we know there's always room here for everyone. No one is excluded. We sing that song, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, come, yet again come. You don't get kicked out for all time because you fell down. You get back up and come on back in. I think the inclusiveness of our brand the inclusiveness of the Christianity that gave rise to us is reflected in the inclusiveness of the Hindu and Buddhist worldview. But again, I'm being really theoretical. Let me just stop and let Edie talk about moving from Christianity and then beyond.
All right, the topic of this portion is why I'm not a Christian. I was raised Presbyterian. I went through confirmation. But even then, at the age of 13, I had questions about some of the theology. Virgin birth, the creation stories, miracles, are they necessary, needed, etc. But I was confirmed, as I wouldn't express those thoughts then. I wouldn't upset my parents with the thoughts I had inside. I married a Jew, and my Presbyterian minister, who married us, who did the ceremony, recommended that we check out the Unitarians as a middle ground between Judaism and Christianity. So eventually, I showed up at First Church, just across the way, as a young adult. Unitarian Universalism spoke to me. What I like about being UU is our respect for all world religions and philosophers. We can find joy, we can find sustenance, we can find assistance with life's difficulties in places other than the Bible. We don't say we've got the one true religion because we recognize all philosophical thoughts, all ethical ways of living as valuable. We can build our own theology, choosing that which resonates at a particular place in time. And I've gone through phases where at one point some thought, and then another time it's another thought that's primary in my head. Over the years, I've learned about several different religious philosophies and have incorporated various ideas into my own religion, philosophy of life. Therefore, while initially I left Christianity in disagreement with the religion of my childhood, I now recognize the goodness of the Christianity of my mother, of my sister. I've taken the attitude toward the religion of others as whatever floats your boat, with an expectation of mutual tolerance. I respect anyone's religious persuasion, but in turn expect them to respect my religious persuasion. My tolerance ends with those like a dude who many years ago followed me as I was pushing a stroller up the hill from the library. Yes, it was so many years ago I had little ones. All the while he was following me, he was exhorting me to take his pamphlet and convert to his version of Christianity. He even said that my then husband would go to hell for being Jewish. That version of Christianity I don't have much patience for. But the Christianity of my mother, which was very strong, it met her needs, and that's good. My conclusion is, I no longer call myself a Christian as I find that designation to be too narrow. Buddhist thought helped me immensely to survive the last decade. Who knows what thoughts or philosophies will support me in the next decade to come?
Love it. Thank you. For all of this, we need to be mindful that it's not all the same. Like, the Buddhism we get, the Christianity we get, is only a slice. I took it for granted that we know that there are varieties of Christianity in the world, yes? Yes, there's a lot of different varieties of Christianity. There are a lot of different ways of being Buddhist, too, right? So like there's like a whole branch of Buddhism that is very concerned with getting to some version of heaven. Roberto put together this slide. Look at all these beautiful images. It's not monolithic. It's not one thing. So when you encounter somebody who is Christian, Buddhist, atheist, whatever, Hindu, especially Hindu, Muslim, yes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, the religion is like this big, yes? and the person is this big. It's better to gently inquire or to approach with curiosity and an open heart. Tell me about your faith. Tell me about your perspectives. Engage in conversation rather than assuming that you know what they mean. Always, always better. Roberto, those are beautiful. Thank you so much for doing that. Let us be gracious and humble and know that we don't know it all. Let us always be students, seeking to learn so that we might grow in spirit. We want to leave you with some parallel sayings from these two faiths. And these all come from a book called Jesus and Buddha. So let's have them up. This first one is from Luke. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Do we have slides for these, Roberto? Oh, you just have to listen. Do unto others as, we'll go back over here. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Consider others as yourself.
Love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. From anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who begs from you, and if anyone takes away your goods, do not ask for them again.
Hatreds do not ever cease in this world by hating, but by love. This is an eternal truth. Overcome anger by love. Overcome evil by good. Overcome the miser by giving. Overcome the liar by truth.
Why, this is from Luke, why do you seek the speck in your neighbor's eye but do not notice the log in your own eye? Or how can you say to your neighbor, friend, let me take that speck out of your eye, when you do not see the log in your own eye? You hypocrite. Don't you love Luke? You hypocrite. He's the best of the gospel writers. You hypocrite. First take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your neighbor's eye.
And from the Udana Varga, the fault of others are easier to see than one's own. The fault of others are easily seen, for they are sifted like chaff, but one's own faults are hard to see. This is like the cheat who hides his dice and shows the dice of his opponent, calling attention to the other's shortcomings, continually thinking of accusing him.
Again, we're back to Luke. He looked up and saw rich people putting their gifts into the treasury, and he also saw a poor widow put in 2 small copper coins. He said, truly, I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them, for all of them have contributed out of their abundance, but she, out of her poverty, has given all she has to live on.
And for the Jacatamala, giving is the noble expression of the benevolence of the mighty. Even dust, given in childish innocence, is a good gift. No gift that is given in good faith to a worthy recipient can be called small. Its effect is so great.
Okay, so I have to admit, I included that one with the widow's mite, not because of the widow's mite, because I love the idea that even dust can be a gift. I'm going to remember that the next time I vacuum. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not let them be afraid.
And that's John. This is from Majjhima Nikaya. May fear and dread not conquer me.
And from John again, you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free.
And from the Dhammapada, one who acts on truth is happy in this world and beyond.
Did you know? And that's just a fraction of what's in that book. Mm-hmm. Like if Jesus is over here saying these things and Buddha is over there saying those things, maybe there's something to it. I don't know. But here's the thing. We as Unitarian Universalists are called to live and act on beliefs that are forever evolving and being tested in this world. Ethan Osborne is a member here, joined when Frank Carpenter was the minister. That was like a little bit before the day before yesterday. And then stayed gone for a number of years, and then came back for a number of years, and is getting ready to go. Ethan, would you like to come up? Is getting ready to leave us again, because one of the ways Ethan lives his values is by working as a firefighter. And that's happening again. So Ethan, will you tell us a little bit about climate change and about your work? And I think we've got a picture of you. You look, yes, can you all see this? It's like Ethan in the fire. Like, talk about like living the work, yes.
Dust.
And dust, that's right.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to briefly talk about my journey into Unitarian Universalism. First, thank you, my congregational comrades. It's my joy to join you today. It's been a long time since I've joined you in service here, as the struggles of life have never ceased to blockade the path to fellowship. Today's theme of the relationship between Christianity and Buddhism couldn't ring closer to my own heart, as my son is from Thailand and his grandfather has been a monk, and in my past I've been a laity monk as well. I was raised in what might seem to be an upbringing of spiritual and religious cognitive dissonance. On one hand, my immediate family, although highly nationalistic, were religiously tolerant, and I grew up within the doctrines of eclectic New Age Christianity, from New Thought Unity denominations to the Christian Science Church, and my late mother described herself as a Christian witch. Other sides of my family were fire and brimstone Southern Evangelical Baptists, so that dichotomy was interesting nonetheless. And growing up in rural Kentucky, sometimes Dominionist Vacation Bible School was the only option for children and childcare when my parents had to work long hours. It was in this setting that I truly rebelled against Orthodox fundamentalist dogma and that kind of ideology around me. And at an early age, I began my own quest for logic and wisdom, knowledge and truth. I grew up questioning the hypocrisy of the fanatical spiritual tyranny who seemed to control the education and governmental systems of which I was raised in. I began to ask questions at an elementary age of why am I here, where did we come from, and what is our purpose? And the answers from the religious and educational authorities around me never satisfied my curiosity. And thankfully, my parents were spiritually open-minded themselves, and although we lived in a rural setting dominated by Christian fundamentalism, I studied the Bible and Quran in middle school, and then I moved into Hindu and Buddhist texts. And I eventually, in high school, volunteered as a laity monk at the Bhavana Society Theravada Temple in West Virginia for summer retreats and delved deeper into Buddhist thought. And this is when I became familiarized with the commune and the idea of little c communism, the commune, community. And in the past decade, I also had the privilege of defending St. Herman of Alaska Eastern Orthodox Monastery in Platina, California, when I lived out west from the annihilation of the wildfires.